Hi, I'm Jim Stroud, and this is my podcast. Did you know that some people are using chatbots like ChatGPT to take on multiple jobs and work excessively long hours? They do this by using the chatbots to respond to messages and emails for them, essentially automating their work. This practice is known as overemployment or hustling, and it raises ethical concerns about the exploitation of technology and the impact on workers' mental and physical health. In this episode of the Jim Stroud Podcast, I discuss overemployment, the pros, the cons, ethics, legality, and trends in taking on multiple jobs. And it all starts right after this.
What would you say you do here?
I generate demand for HR tech companies with awesome content. This includes, but is not limited to, videos, podcasts, webinars, and articles. I produce the content, share the content with over 50,000 of my social media followers, and then I track the amount of traffic and prospects driven to your website. Any questions? If so, email me and let's talk. My email address is easy to remember. It's jimstroud@jimstroud.com. That's JIMSTROUD@jimstroud.com. Operators are standing by. Overemployment, or the practice of taking on multiple jobs to increase income or productivity, has become a growing trend among remote workers in recent years. While there are advantages to this approach, there are also potential drawbacks and ethical considerations to take into account. Let's begin by looking at the pros of overemployment. One of the main benefits of overemployment is increased income. By taking on multiple jobs, workers can earn more money and achieve their financial goals more quickly. Makes sense? This can be especially beneficial for those who are paying off debt, saving for a down payment on a house, or trying to build their retirement savings. Another advantage of overemployment is increased flexibility. With remote work becoming more common, many workers are able to choose when and where they work. This allows them to juggle multiple jobs more easily and create a schedule that works for them. And overemployment can also provide workers with more opportunities to learn new skills and gain valuable experience. By working in multiple industries or roles, workers can expand their knowledge base and build a diverse set of skills that can be valuable throughout their career. So, is overemployment the cure for all of your financial woes? Possibly, potentially, maybe. I don't know, because I don't know your specific financial issue. But I can say that overemployment does have some negatives. One of the biggest negatives is the potential for burnout. Juggling multiple jobs can be exhausting. And workers may struggle to maintain a healthy work-life balance. Now, this can lead to stress, anxiety, and other mental health issues. Another potential downside of overemployment is the risk of lower quality work. When workers are spread thin across multiple jobs, they may not be able to give each job the attention it deserves. And this can result in poor work performance, missed deadlines, and other problems like losing your extra job. Now, there are also ethical considerations to take into account as well. Some people argue that overemployment is exploitative and takes advantage of workers who are already struggling to make ends meet. This is particularly true for low-wage workers who may be forced to take on multiple jobs just to pay their bills. I've said a lot. I'm making my little fingers here. I've discussed the positive and I've discussed the negative of overemployment. But what about the ethics? What about the ethics of it all? Is overemployment the right thing to do? Is it fair to the worker? Is it fair to the companies that the workers work for? The implications aren't simple. It's not really a yes or no question. I guess the best answer is to say it's complicated. On the one hand, overemployment can be seen as a way for workers to take control of their financial situation and increase their income. More jobs, more money. I can't be mad at that. But on the other hand, there are legal considerations to take into account, such as, let me check my notes here, breach of employment contract. If the worker's employment contract with any of the companies prohibits moonlighting or requires employees to disclose any other employment, the company may have grounds to terminate the worker's employment for breach of contract. Another concern, conflict of interest. If the worker's other jobs are in the same industry or related to the company's business, the company may be at risk of a conflict of interest. For example, if the worker works for a competitor, they may have access to sensitive information about the company that they could share with the competitor, potentially causing harm to the company. Another point, violation of non-compete agreements. If the worker has a non-compete agreement with any of the companies, the other jobs may violate that agreement, exposing the company to potential legal action. Something else to think about, liability for negligence or misconduct. If the worker is overworked or fatigued from holding multiple jobs and causes an accident or injury while on the job, the company may be held liable for negligence or misconduct. Additionally, if the worker engages in misconduct such as theft or harassment, the company may be held liable for the worker's actions if they were committed in the course of their employment. And finally, tax violations. If the worker fails to report all of their income from multiple jobs on their tax returns, the companies may be held liable for failing to withhold the appropriate amount of taxes. In addition to that, if the companies were aware of the workers' other jobs and did not report them to the tax authorities, they could be held liable for tax violations as well. Whether you are for it or against it, overemployment is a trend that will only increase as the economy becomes more interesting. To my recollection, people were double dipping as far back as at least since the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009. And even though there isn't a lot of data available specifically on the trend of overemployment, at least none that I could find at the point of this podcast, there are a few data points that can provide some context. Let me read off a couple of data points to you here. According to a, what's the date here? 2020. So according to a 2020 survey by Upwork, 36% of U.S. workers freelanced in some capacity in that year. And 26% of full-time employees said they participated in the gig economy to supplement their income. Another point. This is from a 2018 survey from Bankrate. They found that 37% of Americans had a side hustle in addition to their full-time job, up from 28% in 2017. So that's like, what, a 9-point jump? Interesting. In 2019, this is from 2019. A 2019 report by the Federal Reserve found that nearly 40% of Americans would struggle to cover an unexpected expense of $400 without borrowing or selling something. That's disturbing. And here, this is from 2021. A 2021 report by LinkedIn found that job postings for side hustles or gig work had increased by 50% since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Overemployment has become a growing trend in recent years, particularly among remote workers, and I can see at least three ways. I can see at least 4 ways it has a direct impact on recruiting. The first way I see overemployment impacting recruiting is increased competition for talent. With overemployment becoming more common, companies may find themselves competing with other employers for the same pool of talent. This can make it harder to attract and retain skilled workers, particularly, I use that word a lot, particularly in fields where there is high demand for workers. Another way overemployment affects recruiting is a more diverse applicant pool. Overemployment can create a more diverse applicant pool as workers from different backgrounds with different skills seek out multiple job opportunities. This can provide employers with a wider range of candidates to choose from and help them build more diverse and inclusive teams. Another consideration, another way that overemployment impacts recruiting is an increased demand for flexible work. As more workers take on multiple jobs, there may be an increased demand for flexible work arrangements that allow workers to balance their various commitments. Companies that can offer flexible schedules or remote work options may have an advantage in attracting overemployed workers who are looking for ways to balance their multiple jobs. And finally, greater scrutiny of employment contracts. Yeah, like you didn't see that coming. Overemployment can also lead to greater scrutiny of employment contracts, particularly, see, I do say that a lot, particularly with regards to non-compete clauses or other restrictions on taking on additional employment. Employers may need to review their contracts to ensure that they are not inadvertently discouraging overemployment or violating any legal or ethical obligations. Okay, let me wrap this up with a reminder and a rant. First, a reminder. I am not a lawyer, so do not consider anything I have said as legal advice. I'm sharing opinions and a few facts here and there from articles I've read. So, just felt the need to say that all of a sudden, for whatever reason. And now the rant. There's no one-size-fits-all answer to how companies feel about overemployment, as opinions and policies can vary depending on the company size, industry culture, and the state of the labor market, which fluctuates. Some companies are cool with it as long as it doesn't interfere with the worker's primary job responsibilities. In those cases, some companies see overemployment as a way for employees to gain new skills, earn extra income, or pursue their passions outside of work. Other companies may be a bit more restrictive with their approach and may prohibit employees from holding other jobs, especially if those jobs are in the same industry or can be seen as a conflict of interest. For example, if you work at McDonald's, then you can't get a second job at Burger King because you might give away those burger secrets and you can't have that. Okay? Some companies may take a more nuanced approach, allowing people to have extra jobs based on certain restrictions. You know, maybe people in one department can do it, but people in another department can't because people in the first department are around sensitive data and people in the other department are not. Just throwing it out there. Ultimately, how companies feel about overemployment may depend on a variety of factors, including companies' values, culture, business needs. I said all that already. It's important, though, for employees to be aware of their company's policies and to obtain permission before taking on an additional job, or at least several additional jobs, especially if it can be seen as a conflict of interest. And I'll add this, just sort of popped in my head. I'll add this. It can't hurt to ask an employment lawyer a few questions, just a few questions about, liabilities that could happen to you if you take on multiple jobs. It can't hurt to talk to an employment lawyer, especially if you cannot afford to get caught. Well, my time is up. I thank you for yours. I'll see you again real soon right here with a brand new episode of the Jim Stroud Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached by email at jimstroud@jimstroud.com. And one last favor, if I may ask, please rate this podcast. 5 stars is preferred, but please comment with your honest opinion. I really appreciate that. All right. Okay. Until next time. Bye bye.